I spent 18 days in the EQ after a car crash, but not one family member came to see me. Not mom, not dad, not my brother. My sister texted, "We need the $41,000 from your insurance payout to pay for my new house deposit." I sent $1 and replied, "Build carefully." Hours later, Dad called from the bank parking lot and his voice was shaking. The ceiling tiles in the ICU at Wake Forest Baptist had a water stain in the shape of a boot. I know because I counted the tiles and studied the stains for 18 days, while machines breathed for me and nurses changed my IV bags, and my left femur was held together by a titanium rod and 6 screws that I could feel every time the bed adjusted automatically at 3 a.m. The crash happened on a Tuesday. A white Nissan Altima ran the red light at Haynes Mall Boulevard and Peters Creek Parkway at 4:47 p.m. and T-boned my work van on the driver's side at 45 miles per hour. The van was a 2021 Ford Transit with Voss climate systems on the door, and the Essence systems was peeling because I had been meaning to get the vinyl reapplied for 6 months and never got around to it. The Nissan hit the door panel 3 inches behind my left hip. The impact shattered my femur in 2 places, broke 3 ribs on my left side, and punctured my left lung. I do not remember the sound. I remember the steering wheel pressing into my chest and the taste of copper, and then nothing for 3 days, because they put me in a medically induced coma to manage the brain swelling. I woke up on Friday. Day 3. The ceiling tiles were the first thing I saw. The boot-shaped stain was the second. The third was the empty chair next to my bed. The visitor chair. Vinyl, gray, a pillow on it that a nurse had placed there for when your family comes. Nobody came. Day 4. The chair was empty. I could not turn my head fully because of the neck brace, but I could see the chair in my peripheral vision, and the chair was empty, and the hallway outside the glass door was empty, and the nurse's station whiteboard had a section that said expected visitors, and next to my name, the section was blank. Day 5. My phone was in a plastic bag on the bedside table. A nurse named Cheryl plugged it in for me on day 4 because my left hand could not grip the cord. The screen had a crack across the top from the impact. I had 3 texts. Mom, sent day 2, 11:14 a.m. Emmett, we heard about the accident. I am too upset to come see you like that. Praying for you. Love, Mom. Dad, sent day 2, 3:30 p.m. Son, hang in there. Dealing with the house project this week, can't get away. Will call when I can. Teague, sent day 3, 9:00 a.m. Bro, that sucks. Am out of state for a work thing. Let me know when you're out. 3 texts in 5 days. From a family of 4. My mother was too upset to drive 11 miles. My father was busy with a house project. My brother was out of state. I found out later that every excuse was a lie. Teague's conference in Charlotte ended on day 3. He was back in Winston-Salem by day 4. He drove past the hospital on his way home because Haynes Mall Boulevard runs directly past the Baptist Medical Center campus. He drove past and did not turn in. Mom went to a spa weekend with 2 friends on day 8. The spa was in Blowing Rock, 3 hours away. She was too upset to sit in an ICU room, but not too upset to book a hot stone massage. Dad's house project was Darcy's construction lot in Louisville. He was at the lot with Webb on day 6. Measuring the foundation footprint for a house that would be built on a loan he was already planning to guarantee with my name. Nobody was too busy. Nobody was out of town. Nobody was too upset. They were available and nearby and informed, and they chose not to come. Day 9. A woman from my church named Pauline brought flowers. She was not family. She ran the food pantry on Wednesdays. She had heard about the crash from a deacon. She sat in the gray vinyl chair for 45 minutes and read to me from a newspaper because I could not hold one, and she thought the sound of someone reading aloud might help. She was right. The sound of a human voice that is not a nurse giving instructions and is not a machine beeping is a specific kind of medicine that hospitals cannot prescribe. Pauline came 3 more times. Days 12, 14, and 17. She never missed a visit. She was not family. She just showed up. I almost called Mom on day 11, almost pressed her name on the cracked screen and asked her to please come. Not because I needed her to fix anything, but because the ceiling tiles were starting to look the same and the chair was still empty. And a 35-year-old man in a hospital bed should not have to ask his mother to visit. But the phone was heavy in my hand that could not grip a coffee cup, and the effort of dialing felt larger than the effort of accepting that nobody was coming. So I put the phone back on the table and watched the boot-shaped stain on the ceiling and waited for day 12, when Pauline would come and read the sports section. Nothing from Darcy. Not a text, not a call, not an emoji. 31 years old, and she could not type 6 letters. My service clipboard was not in the van when the paramedics pulled me out. The van was towed to a lot on Watown Street. The clipboard was on the passenger floor under a pile of invoice carbons and a box of air filters I had picked up that morning from the supply house on Stratford Road. Otis Renard brought it to me on day 22, 4 days after I transferred from ICU to the rehabilitation unit. Otis was my physical therapist. 52. He had been assigned to my case the day I arrived in rehab. Former Army medic. He had worked with car accident patients for 15 years, and he understood that a man lying in a hospital bed with a titanium rod in his femur and no family in the waiting room needs 2 things: a reason to stand up and something from his real life to hold while he learns how to do it again. He walked into my room with the clipboard under his arm. Dented aluminum. Scratched. My company logo sticker on the back, the one June had helped me apply 2 years ago. She pressed it on crooked, and I never fixed it, because crooked meant she touched it. Thought you might want this, Otis told me. He set it on my lap. I held it. The metal was cold. The clip at the top still had an invoice pinned under it from the day of the crash. A residential AC install on Reynolda Road, $4,200, half paid, balance due on completion. A job I never finished. A customer I had to refund. One of 14 contracts I lost during recovery, totaling $72,000 in missed revenue. I held the clipboard and looked at the empty visitor chair and did not cry, because I had stopped expecting the chair to be occupied on day 7, and by day 22, the absence was not a wound anymore. It was data. The same kind of data I read on a diagnostic screen when I am checking a compressor. The numbers tell you what is broken. The absence of family and 18 days of EQ told me everything the text did not. If you are watching this, and you have ever woken up in a hospital bed and counted the ceiling tiles because there was nobody in the room to talk to, you are in the right place. Welcome to Family Secret Tales. On day 17, Darcy texted, not to ask how I was doing, not to say she was sorry about the 17 days of silence, not to ask about the femur or the lung or the physical therapy schedule that was consuming every hour of my conscious day. The text arrived at 3:22 p.m. while I was doing arm curls with a 2-pound weight because my left arm had atrophied during the coma and the 2-pound weight felt like 20, and I was sweating through my hospital gown, and Otis was counting reps from a stool in the corner. When you get the insurance money, we need to talk about the house deposit. Webb and I need $41,000 for the down payment. The PIP payout should cover it. Let me know. $41,000. My PIP advance. Personal injury protection, the automatic payout from my auto insurance for medical expenses, deposited to my Voss Climate Systems business account on day 9 while I was still in the ICU with a ventilator and a catheter and a ceiling full of tiles I had memorized. Darcy knew about the PIP because Dad told her. Dad knew about it because he called my insurance agent, a man named Fletcher who had handled the Voss family's policies for 12 years, and asked about the claim status. Fletcher, who assumed a father calling about his injured son's claim was acting out of concern, mentioned the PIP amount without hesitation. He did not know he was giving the number to a man who would use it as a funding target for a construction project. I did not respond to the text for 6 days. 6 days of parallel bars and arm curls, and range of motion exercises, and the slow grinding work of teaching muscles to remember what they could do before a Nissan Altima interrupted the lesson. Otis never mentioned the text. He did not know about it. But he noticed the change in my grip strength on day 18, the day after the text arrived. My left hand, which had been improving at 5% per session, dropped to 2%. Anger lives in the hands. Otis told me that on day 20. The hands are where the body puts the things the mouth will not say. On day 23, one day after Otis brought the clipboard, Darcy texted again. This time in the family group chat. Mom, Dad, Teague, Darcy, and me. Emmett, I know you are in rehab. You have had time to think. Webb and I need the $41,000 for the Louisville lot. The construction loan is approved. We need the deposit by the 15th. This is not a request. This is family. Mom replied, Emmett, help your sister. She needs this. Dad replied, Son, this is important. Darcy and Webb have been planning this for a year. Teague replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I read the messages on my phone while sitting in a wheelchair in the rehab facility cafeteria. Otis was across from me eating a turkey sandwich. June was visiting. She was sitting in my lap, which she is not supposed to do because of my leg, but she is 8, and she missed her father, and I was not going to tell her to sit somewhere else. I opened Venmo. I sent Darcy $1. The note field said, build carefully. Then I put my phone face down on the cafeteria table and watched June draw a house on the back of a napkin. 2 windows. A door. Smoke from the chimney. She draws houses constantly since the divorce. Every house has 2 windows and a door and smoke. Every house looks safe. Darcy's response came in the group, chat 40 minutes later. The message that would become the sentence I would read to my attorney the next morning. You crawl out of a hospital bed, and the first thing you do is play games with money. You fix air conditioners for a living, Emmett. You have 1 daughter you can barely afford, and a business that runs out of a van with your name misspelled on the side. We are building a home. A real home. Not a rental with window units. Give us the $41,000 or admit you would rather watch your sister struggle than lift 1 broken finger. Lift 1 broken finger. She typed that to a man whose left hand could not grip a coffee cup without trembling. She typed it in a group chat where our mother and father were watching. Neither of them corrected her. Neither of them said, your brother is in a wheelchair. Neither of them said, he has been in the hospital for 23 days and none of us visited him. I almost responded. Almost typed the settlement number and watched the group chat go silent. But June was in my lap drawing a chimney, and Otis was watching me across the table with the steady, knowing look of a man who has seen enough accident patients make decisions from anger to know the difference between a response and a reaction. So I put the phone down. Not yet, Otis said quietly. Not a question. A reading. Not yet. If you have ever received a demand for money from a hospital bed while the people demanding it were too busy to visit, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and hit the bell. What my family did not know was that the $41,000 PIP advance was not the settlement. It was the appetizer. The driver who ran the red light was insured by State Mutual with a $500,000 policy. My attorney, Pia Sung, had been working the case since week 2. She negotiated a settlement of $385,000. Medical expenses, $148,000. Lost wages, $72,000. Pain and suffering, $165,000. The settlement was finalized 2 weeks ago. The money was in Pia's trust account at Atlantic Capital, not in my personal bank, not in my business account. In a trust account that does not appear on credit checks, bank statements, or any document my family could access. The family knew about $41,000. They did not know about $385,000. But that was not the worst thing I discovered during recovery. The worst thing was on a credit report. 2 weeks ago, Pia ran a routine credit check as part of the settlement documentation. Standard procedure for any settlement over $100,000. She needed to verify there were no existing liens, judgments, or credit obligations that could attach to the settlement funds or create complications during disbursement. Emmett, there is an anomaly on your credit report, Pia told me. Her office was on 4th Street, 2nd floor. above a sandwich shop that smelled like roasted peppers every afternoon. I was in her leather client chair with the cane leaning against the desk and the clipboard on my lap. My left leg was throbbing because the morning PT session had been aggressive, and Otis had pushed the range of motion past 80 degrees for the first time. What kind of anomaly? A hard credit inquiry. First Community Bank. Filed June 10th. $220,000 construction loan. You are listed as guarantor. I did not guarantee any loan. I know. Because on June 10th, you were in the ICU. Pia pulled up the medical records on her second monitor, the records she had been working with for 3 months. Days 5 through 9, you were in a medically induced coma. Day 10 was your first conscious day post-sedation. On June 10th, specifically at 2:14 p.m. when the DocuSign was executed, the attending physician's notes state, patient remains intubated, sedation level at Richmond Agitation Sedation Scale -4, no voluntary motor function. She let that sit. -4 means deeply sedated. Emmett, you could not open your eyes. You could not move your hands. You could not speak. You certainly could not read and sign a 12-page loan application. Pia pulled the loan application from the bank's document portal. She had requested it through a formal attorney's inquiry citing potential identity fraud. The bank had complied within 48 hours. The application was 12 pages, printed and spread across her desk. Page 7 listed the guarantor, Emmett James Voss. My son. My employment, Voss Climate Systems LLC, Winston-Salem, NC. My annual income, $290,000. My credit score at time of application, 780. Every detail was accurate. Every detail had been known to my father for years because I had shared my tax returns with him 3 years ago when he helped me file, and he had kept a copy of the documents in his filing cabinet at home. Page 8 had the electronic signature, Emmett Voss in DocuSign digital typeface. Execution date, June 10. Execution time, 2:14 p.m. I stared at the typed letters of my own name, the names someone else had typed while I was 11 miles away with a tube in my throat. The DocuSign link was sent to an email address. Pia continued. She turned the laptop screen toward me. The bank's DocuSign delivery log was on screen. The email address listed for the guarantor is lilavoss72@gmail.com. That is my father's email, not yours. No, mine is emmett.voss@vossclimate.com. The bank has it on file from previous interactions. Someone changed the guarantor email to your father's address before the DocuSign was sent. Who changed it? The primary applicant or the co-applicant? The application was filed by Darcy Voss and Webb Hollis. One of them, or someone with access to the application portal, replaced your email with your father's. The IP address of the signature, I asked. Can you see where it was signed from? Pia nodded. She scrolled to the DocuSign security metadata. The signature was executed from IP address 72.184.xxx.xx. I ran it through a geolocation service. It resolves to a residential ISP connection at 1440 Grassy Creek Lane, Winston-Salem. That is my parents' house. Pia closed the laptop. She folded her hands on the desk. Your father used your social security number, your employment information, and your credit score to guarantee a $220,000 construction loan for your sister while you were in a coma. He intercepted the DocuSign link by listing his own email as yours. He signed it from his home computer. I almost put the clipboard through the wall. Almost stood up from the chair and swung the dented aluminum board at the framed diplomas behind Pia's desk and let the sound of breaking glass be the response my mouth could not form. But the cane was against the desk, and my leg was aching, and June was at school drawing houses with chimneys, and Otis had told me on day 30 of rehab, the body heals in stages. So does the anger. Let it go through the stages. What do? I asked. Pia opened a drawer. She took out a folder. I sent a fraud notification to First Community Bank. I include the DocuSign log showing your father's email and IP address. I include your medical records proving you were in a coma on the date of the signature. The bank freezes the loan pending investigation. your sister's construction stops, and your father gets a call from the bank's fraud department. When? Monday. Do it. Monday morning, Pia sent the fraud notification to First Community Bank. The package was 14 pages, certified mail, return receipt requested, with a digital copy sent via the bank's secure attorney portal. Page 1. Cover letter on Pia Sung, attorney at law, letterhead. Subject, unauthorized loan guarantee, account hack FCB 2204418, guarantor, Emmett James Voss. Pages 2-5. Medical records from Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. Admission date. Diagnosis codes. The attending physician's notes from June 10th stating, patient remains intubated and sedated. Richmond Agitation Sedation Scale, -4. No voluntary motor function. No capacity for informed consent or document execution. The notes were signed by Dr. Arnett Kim, who had been Emmett's attending for the full 18-day ICU stay. Pages 6-7. DocuSign security log printout. The email address. The IP address. The timestamp. The geolocation match to 1440 Grassy Creek Lane. Pages 8-9. Emmett's actual email address as registered with First Community Bank for all prior communications, demonstrating the guarantor email was changed to a third party's address. Pages 10-12. A sworn declaration from Emmett Voss stating he did not authorize, approve, or have knowledge of the loan guarantee at any time before, during, or after his hospitalization. Pages 13-14. A formal request for immediate suspension of the loan pending fraud investigation, removal of Emmett Voss's name as guarantor, and referral of the matter to the bank's fraud department and, if warranted, to law enforcement. Pia had assembled the package the way I assemble a diagnostic report on a commercial HVAC system. Every page was evidence, every page was numbered, and every page pointed to the same conclusion. The system was not functioning as designed because someone had tampered with the control board. The control board was page 8, the electronic signature typed by a man in his kitchen while his son was in a coma 11 miles east. The bank received the package at 9 a.m. Monday. By 10:15, the fraud department had opened a case file. By 11:30, the loan was frozen. All disbursements suspended. The construction account that had been funding Darcy and Webb's lot work was locked. By 1 p.m., the bank called Lyle Voss. I know because Dad called me at 1:47 p.m. from the First Community Bank parking lot on Haynes Mall Boulevard. The same boulevard where the Nissan Altima ran the red light and changed my ceiling to IQ tiles. Dad was calling from the parking lot of a bank on the same road where his son almost died and he did not visit. His voice was shaking. Not the voice from the group chat. Not the son, this is important voice. The voice of a man who has just been told by a bank officer that the guarantor on his daughter's construction loan was in a medically induced coma when the electronic signature was executed, and that the file has been referred to the bank's internal fraud department and possibly to law enforcement. Emmett, the bank just called me in. They said the loan is frozen. They said your attorney sent something. They said the guarantor's signature is under investigation. What did you do? What did I do? I let the question sit in the air for 3 seconds. I was in a coma, Dad, on June 10th at 2:14 p.m. when someone signed a DocuSign from your email address on your Wi-Fi network using my social security number. I was unconscious with a ventilator tube in my throat. You know that. You were the one who did not visit. I can explain. You cannot explain typing my name on a loan application while I was breathing through a machine. There is no explanation for that. There is a medical record and a DocuSign log and an IP address, and they all say the same thing. Darcy needed the loan. Her credit is too low. Webb's credit is too low. You were the only one in the family with a score high enough to qualify. So you waited until I was in a coma and could not say no. 3 seconds of silence. I could hear the bank parking lot through the phone. Cars, a shopping cart. The sound of a normal Tuesday afternoon for everyone, except the man sitting in his truck with a frozen loan and a son who just said the word coma. You used my social while I was in a coma, Dad. The bank has the DocuSign IP address. It matches your Wi-Fi. The loan is frozen. Dad's breathing went ragged. Emmett, they are talking about fraud charges. They said I could face criminal referral. I am 61 years old. You signed a $220,000 loan guarantee using an unconscious man's identity. That is fraud, whether you are 61 or 31. And you did it 11 miles from the ICU, where your son was lying with 6 screws in his leg and nobody from this family in the waiting room. He did not respond. The line stayed open for 4 seconds. Then he hung up. If you have ever heard your father's voice shake and known that the shaking was not fear for you, but fear of what you found out, subscribe to Family Secret Tales. The construction on Darcy's Louisville lot stopped Wednesday. The contractor pulled his crew at 8, and when the bank notified him, the loan disbursement was suspended. The foundation had been poured. The grading was complete. $38,000 in site work already invoiced. The contractor filed a mechanic's lien for $12,000 in unpaid labor and materials. The lot sat with a concrete pad and no walls and no framing and no roof, a foundation for a house that would not be built on stolen credit. Darcy called me screaming Thursday morning. Her voice had the pitch of a woman whose house plan just collapsed into a concrete pad and is looking for someone to blame who is not her father and not her fiancé and not the DocuSign log with the wrong email address. You froze our loan. You froze our house. Webb and I put $38,000 into that lot. The grading is done. The foundation is poured. The framing was supposed to start next week. We are going to lose everything because you could not let your family build a house. You put $38,000 into a lot using a loan that was guaranteed with my identity while I was in a medically induced coma. You did not call me. You did not visit me. You did not send a text that said, "Are you okay?" The first message you sent in 18 days was a request for money. And the entire time, Dad was typing my name on a loan application from his kitchen while I was breathing through a machine 11 miles away. This is not about the hospital. It is entirely about the hospital, Darcy. 18 days. Not one visit, not one call, not one text asking how I was. The first time you contacted me was day 17 to ask for $41,000. The second time was to call me a failure who fixes air conditioners and can barely afford his daughter. And the entire time, Dad was building your house on my credit while I was learning to breathe without a ventilator. Dad said you would not mind. He said once you were better, you would understand. I was in a coma. I could not mind or not mind because I was unconscious. That is the point. He chose the one moment in my entire life when I physically could not say no. If he believed I would understand, he would have waited until I was awake and asked me. I almost told her about the $385,000, almost let the settlement number drop into the conversation and watched the silence that would follow when she realized the $41.00 she was demanding was less than 12% of what I actually received. But Pia's voice was in my head. The settlement is in a trust account. Keep it there. The moment they know the number, the requests become demands and the demands become legal. So I kept the number where it belonged. In the trust. Darcy hung up. Pia sent a formal cease and desist letter to all 4 family members the following week. Certified mail. The letter stated that any further use of Emmett Voss's identity, credit, or financial information without written authorization would result in immediate criminal referral. The letter included the DocuSign log, the IP address, the email discrepancy, and the medical records proving Emmett was in a coma at the time of the signature. The letter was CC'd to the bank's fraud department, which meant the bank now had 2 copies of the evidence, Pia's original notification and the cease and desist copy. Darcy posted on Facebook the following Sunday. The post did not name Emmett. It said, "When family betrays you during the hardest time of your life, you learn who really has your back. Some people would rather destroy what you are building than help carry a single brick." She used the word building as if she were the one doing the construction and not the one whose construction depended on a forged signature from an unconscious man. The post received 42 comments. Most were sympathetic, heart emojis and prayer hands from people who did not know the full story. But 3 comments came from family members who did. Cousin Paulette, who had heard the full account from Aunt Rita, who had received the cease and desist letter because she was CC'd on the family distribution list, commented, "Darcy, your brother was in the ICU for 18 days and nobody in your immediate family visited him. The loan was filed while he was in a coma. This is not betrayal. This is consequences." The comment received 14 likes in 2 hours. Darcy deleted it. Paulette reposted it as a screenshot on her own page. The screenshot received 31 shares. Darcy set her Facebook profile to private by Tuesday. The Louisville lot sat untouched through the fall. The concrete foundation pad turned gray in the rain. Weeds grew through the gravel around the perimeter. The contractor's mechanic's lien sign was posted on a wooden stake at the lot entrance, $12,000 outstanding. Webb drove past the lot twice a week on his way to work. He told a coworker he was taking a break from the project. The coworker had seen Paulette's screenshot and did not ask follow-up questions. Mom called me the Sunday after the cease and desist letter arrived. I was at Otis's home gym doing resistance band work on my left quad. The phone buzzed on the weight bench. I saw the name. I let it ring 3 times while I finished the set. Otis looked at the screen and looked at me and did not say anything, because Otis has never told me what to do with a phone call. He only tells me what to do with a muscle. Her voice was the voice she uses when she wants to smooth a situation back into the shape she prefers. The soft and reasonable voice. The voice that has been managing Lyle's decisions for 30 years by reframing them as minor errors committed by a good man who meant well. The voice that turned 18 days of not visiting a hospital into I was too upset. The voice that turned a forged loan guarantee into an error in judgment. Emmett, your father made an error in judgment. He was trying to help your sister. He did not mean any harm. He loves you. You know that. He forged my electronic signature on a $220,000 loan while I was in a medically induced coma, Mom. He used my social security number. He redirected the DocuSign to his own email. He signed it from his kitchen computer at 2:14 p.m. on a day when I was unconscious with a ventilator tube in my throat. That is not an error in judgment. That is identity fraud. He is your father, Emmett. He is a man who had my social security number from a tax filing and used it during the 1 week of my life when I could not say no. He did not ask me. He did not visit me. He did not sit in the gray chair next to my bed and look me in the face and say, "Emmett, your sister needs help. Can I use your credit?" He waited until I was unconscious because unconscious people cannot refuse. That is not fatherhood. That is opportunity. Can you at least talk to him? He has not slept in 4 days. He sits in his truck in the driveway. I did not sleep for 18 days, Mom. Not real sleep. Not safe sleep. I slept in an ICU with machines and strangers and ceiling tiles I memorized because nobody from my family came to give me something else to look at. Dad was too busy with the house project. Those were your exact words. Now I know what the house project was. It was stealing my identity to build a house for the daughter who could not be bothered to text me for 17 days. She did not respond. The line went dead. The silence on the other end had the weight of a woman who had run out of reframes. 2 weeks later, Teague drove to my apartment. He arrived at 6 p.m. on a Thursday. He was wearing a polo shirt and the expression of a man who has been sent by his family to negotiate something he does not fully understand. "I want to help fix this," Teague told me. He stood in my doorway with his hands in his pockets. "If you drop the fraud complaint, I will take over the guarantor position on the loan. I will sign the papers. My name instead of yours. Your credit score is 580. Teague, the loan requires a minimum of 720 for a guarantor. I can work on my credit. You cannot work your credit from 580 to 720 before the bank makes a fraud determination. That takes years, and the loan is already frozen. There is nothing to take over." I picked up the service clipboard from the counter. I flipped to the page Pia had printed, the DocuSign security log. The email address, lilavos72@gmail.com. The IP address. The timestamp, June 10th, 2:14 p.m. The signature, Emmett Voss. I held it up so T could read it through the screen door. He read it. His eyes went from the email to the IP address to the timestamp. He did not speak for 6 seconds. Then his jaw loosened the way a jaw loosens when the person attached to it realizes that the thing they came to negotiate is not a misunderstanding. It is evidence. He left without speaking. I watched him drive away. Lyle Voss sat in his truck in the First Community Bank parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the fraud notification. The bank had closed at 5 p.m. The lot was empty except for his truck and a maintenance van near the dumpster enclosure. The afternoon light was going flat, and the shadows of the light poles were stretching across the asphalt toward the entrance doors that would not open for him again, because the bank's fraud department had flagged his name in their system. The loan application folder was on the passenger seat. 12 pages. He could not leave it at home, because leaving it at home meant Gail might find it in the filing cabinet where he kept it behind the tax returns, and Gail finding it would mean another conversation like the one they had on Monday when she found the cease and desist letter in the mail and read it standing in the kitchen, and then sat down at the table and put her face in her hands and did not speak for 20 minutes. Page 7. Guarantor information. Emmett James Voss. SEN ending in 4418. Employment, Voss Climate Systems LLC. Credit score, 780. All of it accurate. All of it taken from the tax documents Emmett had shared 3 years ago when he asked his father for help filing. The filing took 2 hours. The theft of the information took less than 5 seconds. One photograph of the SEN card. One screenshot of the employment page. Both saved in Lyle's phone in a folder labeled Tax Documents. Page 8. Electronic signature. Emmett Voss. DocuSign, June 10th, 2:14 p.m. He looked at page 8. The name he had typed on his home computer at the kitchen table. Gail was at the grocery store. Darcy was on the phone with the contractor reviewing the framing schedule. Webb was at the Louisville lot measuring the setback from the property line. And Emmett was 11 miles away at Wake Forest Baptist in a hospital bed with his eyes closed and a ventilator pushing oxygen into a punctured lung and 6 screws holding a shattered femur together and a gray vinyl chair next to his bed that nobody from this family had sat in. Lyle had typed the first name, then the last name. Then he clicked submit. The DocuSign confirmation appeared on his screen. He closed the laptop. He made a cup of coffee. He went to the living room and turned on the evening news, and he did not drive 11 miles to the hospital, because driving to the hospital would mean sitting in the chair next to his son's bed and looking at his son's face while knowing what he had just typed on the computer in the kitchen. He sat in the bank parking lot for 35 minutes. The maintenance van left at 5:20. The lot went fully dark. The loan folder sat on the passenger seat with page 8 visible, the digital signature catching the last reflection from the parking lot lamp before it cycled off for the night. Saturday morning. Emmett's apartment on Kester Mill Road. The apartment is a second-floor walk-up that takes me 47 seconds to climb now. 6 weeks ago, it took me 4 minutes with the cane. 2 weeks ago, I did it in under a minute for the first time, and Otis, who was timing me from the bottom of the stairs with a stopwatch and a protein bar, tapped his knee once and said, "Rep complete." The service clipboard is on the kitchen counter next to a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice and the morning light that comes through the east-facing window at an angle that hits the company logo sticker on the back of the clipboard and makes June's crooked application visible, like a signature. A signature that is real because the person who put it there did it with her own hands and not from someone else's email address. June's drawing from yesterday is on the table, a house with 2 windows and a door and smoke from the chimney and a mailbox with the name Voss on it in her handwriting. She has been drawing houses since the divorce. Everyone has 2 windows and a door and smoke. Everyone looks safe in the specific way that a child draws safety, simple lines, primary colors, and a door that is always open. Otis Renard is at the counter with a protein shake and a printed PT schedule for next week's sessions. 3 sessions. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The left leg is at 85% range of motion. The grip strength in my left hand is back to 90%. Otis has been with me for 4 months. He has seen me go from a wheelchair to parallel bars to a walker to a cane to the stairs, and he has never once told me to slow down or hurry up. He has never once asked about the family. He asked once, on day 25, if anyone was helping at home, and I told him no, and he nodded and did not ask again because Otis understands that some questions have answers that do not help the recovery. The settlement funds are in Pia's trust account, $385,000. After attorney fees of $128,000 and medical lien repayments of $47,000, the net settlement is $210,000. I signed the purchase agreement yesterday afternoon for a 3-bedroom house on Meadowlark Drive. Cash offer, $195,000. The house has a chimney. It has a yard with a maple tree. It has a garage where I can park the new work van I purchased last month to replace the totaled Transit. And it has a front door that I will walk through without a cane by Thanksgiving. No mortgage. No guarantor. No cosigner. No DocuSign sent to someone else's email. No name typed by someone else's hands. Every signature on the purchase agreement is mine. Every letter in my name was written by me, sitting upright in a chair in Pia's office, with my left hand steady for the first time in 4 months. June holds up her drawing. The house with the chimney. Dad, can our new house have a chimney? I look at her, at the drawing, at the clipboard on the counter with the crooked logo sticker she pressed on 2 years ago, at Otis with his protein shake and his PT schedule, and the patient attention of a man who has watched me learn to walk again 1 rep at a time, at my hands, which are steady now, which can hold a wrench and a clipboard and a pen and my daughter's hand without shaking. It can have whatever you want, June, and nobody else's name will be on it. Otis taps the counter once with his knuckle. The signal from rehab. Rep complete. The clipboard catches the morning light on the counter. Dented aluminum. Scratched, crooked logo sticker. Built for a man who fixes the systems that keep buildings livable. Not for a man who steals his son's name to build one.